going to talk about is women as portrayed in the Bible and as portrayed by Israeli writers, poets. And the Bible has captured the imagination, and more than the imagination, of the Israelis. It's part of the Zionist movement infrastructure. This is very important to understand, that the Zionist movement wanted to break away from the way Jews lived in the diaspora. And the Bible gave them a new way to look at the new Jew. The new Jew that will build Israel, that will return to Zion, Shivat Zion, and will be born afresh and new. And we would not be submissive to others, and will be a sovereign in his own country. The Bible really gives us, first of all, the right to Eretz Israel. Second, the spiritual and cultural infrastructure and moral infrastructure of our lives. It also gives us the three principles of Zionism. Zionism was looking for three elements in the return to Zion, in Shivat Zion. Number one is the conquest of the land, of the soil, which the Bible has to do with that a lot, because our forefathers, our ancestors, were agricultural or shepherds. The second was the conquest of work, and our forefathers used to work and not just pray and live on tzedakah, on charity. And the third was the conquest of the Hebrew language, which the Bible really gave us freely and abundantly. When the Zionist movement started, the first writers used to write in biblical Hebrew. Like Mapu, who wrote books like Ashmat Shomron, Ahavat Zion, the love of Zion, it was all in biblical Hebrew. In the beginning of the state of Israel, the Hebrew language was more similar to biblical Hebrew. Nowadays, it has broken away from that, and it's very different. But still, most of us Israelis can read the Bible and understand it. Now, the Bible has a lot of stories. These stories are dramatic. They are condensed. They are filled with archetypal figures that really capture the imagination of the Israeli writer. The Israeli writer uses the Bible as a stepping stone to reach a large audience, because the common denominator of all the parts of population in Israel is really the Bible. There is almost no one in Israel who hasn't learned the Bible. So once they evoke stories or imagery or verses from the Bible, everybody knows what they are talking about. What we are going to do today is see how they deviate from the biblical verse and take it to another place, completely to another place. They are looking at things in the Bible and interpreting it in a new way. Some are using it for political reasons. Some are using it for emotional reasons. Some are using it for feministic reasons. So we are going to deal with some of these aspects. We are going to read together some of these poems and see where the Israeli poet takes the Bible to. Now, before we go into reading the poems, we must understand the scope of our talk today. We are going, I have two poems about Eve, which I don't think we are going to deal with. I would like to deal with the poetry that has to do with Abraham and his two wives, Sarah and Hagar. That's the first love triangle that we know. And the poems that have to do with Jacob, Leah, and Rachel, and Rachel, which is the second triangle And maybe if we have time to deal with the poem of Tamar, the wife of Er, the son of Yehuda. This is the scope of what we are going to do. It's Genesis. If we have time, I'll go to the two Eve poems, but only if we have time. Now I would like you to journey back in time with me, and to go back. We are now somewhere in Iraq, in Ur Kasdim. There is a guy by the name of Abraham. His name is still Avram, not Abraham, Avram. God is going to change his name later on into Abraham, which means the father of many nations. Av Hamon Goyim. But it's going to happen only later on. So this guy Abraham is the first person that we know of, but probably there were others, who is monotheistic, who believes in one God. Before that, we know people were pagans. They believed in many gods, the god of the wind, and the god of the sun, and the god of the trees, and God knows what not. Now this guy, he is going to wander from Iraq, from Ur Kasdim, all the way to Israel. He is the head of a tribe. In his tribe, he has this wife of his who is called Sarai. God is going to change her name into Sarah. This is the only case in the Bible where God changes the name of a woman. The only. He changes the name of Yaakov into Israel and of Abraham into Abraham, but with a woman, it's only Sarai. He has this woman who is a beauty, and they are wandering, the tribe is wandering with their flock all the way from Ur Kasdim, from Iraq to Eretz Israel. They are going to hit famine in Israel and go down all the way to Egypt, which was a very common thing in those days, because the Nile would fertilize the ground. And then the Pharaoh in those days falls in love with Sarai. And Abraham is afraid that if they will kill him if they know that she's his wife, and take her wife, and that's it. So he tells her to tell Pharaoh that she's his sister. And Pharaoh takes her. It's important for what we are going to read later on. Takes her, and God punishes Pharaoh because she is a married woman. And he tells Pharaoh, "What are you doing? You are having intercourse with a married woman. It's terrible. It's terrible." So Pharaoh says to Abraham, "What are you doing? Why did you do that?" He tells him the story. So Pharaoh gives him back his wife, and he gives him money, and he gives him a woman who is going to be the slave or the maid of Sarah, Hagar. This is very important for our story. This is an Egyptian maid, and she's going to follow the tribe and be second to her mistress, to the lady, to the first lady. Sarai is the first lady, and Abraham is the head of the tribe. And we have Hagar, who is the maid. Now, in those days, the most important thing for a woman was to bear children. Unfortunately, the mothers of Israel were barren. Sarai was barren, and Rachel was barren. Yeah, it's oivei. They met oivei. It's indeed oivei. And if a woman was burned, she was scorned, disdained, and looked down at. And this beautiful, beautiful woman, Sarai, has no child. And excuse me? Yeah. And she is looking for a surrogate. It's the first case that we have documented of a surrogate. And here she is, Hagar, the Egyptian slave, the Egyptian maid, and she's going to go to Hagar and to Abraham and say, "Why won't Hagar bear a child, and the child will be ours?" Like what happens with a surrogate woman. And that's where we are going to start our talk today. Okay? So let's look at the Bible, at the verses from Genesis. And we are Genesis number 16. Would Someone would like to read it? The English part, please, Carol? Genesis 16.
Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had not borne to him, and she had an Egyptian handmaid named Hagar. And Sarai said to Abram, Behold now, the Lord has restrained me from bearing. Please come to my handmaid. Perhaps I will be built up from her. And Abram hearkened to Sarai's voice. So Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar the Egyptian, her handmaiden, at the end of 10 years of Abram dwelling in the land of Canaan, and she gave her to Abram, her husband, for a wife. And he came to Hagar, and she conceived, and she saw that she was pregnant, and her mistress became unimportant in her eyes. And Sarai said to Abram, May my injustice be upon you. I gave my handmaid unto your bosom, and she saw that she had become pregnant, and I became unimportant in her eyes. May the Lord judge between me and you. And Abram said to Sarai, Here is your handmaid in your hand. Do to her that which is proper in your eyes. And Sarai afflicted her, and she fled before her. And an angel of the Lord found her by a water fountain in the desert, by the fountain on the road to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's servant, where are you coming from, and where are you going to? And she said, From Sarai my mistress I am fleeing. And the angel of the Lord said to her, Return to your mistress, and allow yourself to be afflicted under her hands.
Okay. So we know now what's the basis for the story. And Hagar becomes very important. She accumulates power, and she wants to be the first lady.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. And she's walking there with her big belly, showing off that she is not barren, but Sarai is barren, and who is important? The one with the child. And Sarai gets very, very upset, and she becomes very jealous. And who knows what happens in the heart of Abraham? Maybe he is in love now with Hagar. What? Does he still love Sarai? We don't know. So the first one we are going to read is on page 3. And it's mine.
Which one?
The one with the clip on.
It's number 3, and it says Sarah. On page 3. Can you find it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll read just the passage in Hebrew and then in English. Sarah הייתה אישה, רכה ורחמנית, תלומה כמענית, והוא אצל הגר תמיד. This couldn't be translated into English. The best that could be done is what I have here. Sarah was a woman, soft and pliant, like a furrowed field, and he was Hagar, and in Hebrew I say tamid, always. And he was Hagar, always. He's there. Hagar was the big belly, first lady, and Avram maybe doesn't come to Sarah's tent at night anymore. Sarah was soft and pliant, quiet and kind, a woman, and he was Hagar. Sarah was a woman quiet and kind, crushed and cruel, and he was Hagar. And then a miracle happens. And we're going to read the miracle very soon. At the age of 90, 3 angels are going to appear at the tent of Abraham and Sarah and tell Abraham, he's not yet Abraham, Abraham, that he is going to have a child from Sarah. And Sarah says, that's ridiculous. I'm 90 and he's 100. That's ridiculous. And she's laughing. And a year later, Sarah is going to have a child. So the last paragraph, Sarah was crushed and cruel, a woman. When her womb was soft with sun, called her the laughing one. she laughed. And in Hebrew, to laugh is litzchok. And that's why Yitzchak, Isaac, the name is Yitzchak. Because she laughed. Yitzchaka. So the son's name is Yitzchak, the one who will laugh.
Well, she said she didn't laugh.
Yeah, she denied it. She denied it. When God said, why did she laugh? She said, I did not.
Right.
By the way, I forgot to tell you something. Not only are these stories dramatic, but they are X and R rated. They have a lot of sex, a lot of violence, a lot of cruelty in them. And people lie, and people really,
What else is new?
nothing is new. That's why I say they are archetypal. And what I tried is to portray the archetype of the jealous woman, the one whose husband is never home, but goes to some other woman that he fell in love, maybe a mistress, God knows. And the wife is waiting and waiting and waiting. And when does she feel that she's accomplished? When she is with a child. And the Bible is full of this idea that a woman must fulfill her biological
Duty.
right. It's even more than a duty. It's destiny.
Obligation. That's
It's her destiny. This is the most important thing for a woman. And once she fulfills it, she is fulfilled. She feels accomplished. Otherwise, she feels barren and empty and unimportant. So here is one archetype, jealousy. Jealousy of a woman that is called by the mistress, by the surrogate, and is looking for something else that will redeem her. And this is when Yitzchak is going to be born. Now let's go to the second chapter that we are going to deal with, Genesis 18. And I would like one of you to read it.
And he said, I will surely return to you at this time next year. And behold, your wife Sarah will have a son. And Sarah heard the entrance of the tent, and looked behind her. And Abraham and Sarah were old, coming on in years. Sarah had ceased to have related women. And Sarah laughed within herself, saying, after I have become young, will I have smooth flesh. Also my master is old. And the Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh, saying, you live in without your birth, although I am old? Is anything hidden from the Lord? At any time I will return to you at this time next year, and Sarah will have a son. And Sarah denied, saying, I did not laugh. And he said, no, you laughed. And men arose from there, and they looked upon Sodom. Abraham went with them to Bethel.
So here we have the thing that Sarah is laughing and she's denying that she laughed. Now the commentators, the rabbis say that Abraham was like a cinnamon, because the stick of cinnamon, once you put it in water, becomes alive again. And so did Abraham. When he was 100, he became alive again and bore fruit again. Now, it's very important for me also to tell you one thing, that I don't come from a religious background. So I'm not going to say whether God can do that, or I look at it from
biological point of view.
right and a secular point of view. Okay? So we know now that two things happen. One, the surrogate bore a child, Ishmael. Ishmael, God will listen to me. And Ishmael, in English, Ismail, right? But Ishmael, God will listen to me. And the feud between the two brothers did not start now in Eretz Israel. It started 1,000,000 years ago. Not million, but many, many thousand years ago. Because Sarah now has a child, Yitzchak. And she's worried sick, lest Abraham will love Yitzchak and Hagar more than herself and Yitzchak. Ishmael and Hagar, sorry. Lest Abraham will love Ishmael and Hagar more than Yitzchak and herself. So she is going to decide to expel Hagar, expel her unto the desert. This is such a cruel thing. The father is going to expel Hagar and her son Ishmael to the desert, to an unknown land, and God knows what's going to happen. By the way, the Bible is filled with such incidents in which children couldn't trust their parents anymore. You know? Just imagine, the father takes this child, he's about 13 I think, and the mother, and he expels them. Let's read Genesis 21. Who would like to read it? Please.
And the Lord remembered Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had spoken. And Sarah conceived and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham named his son who had been born to him, whom Sarah had borne to him, Isaac.
Yitzchak will laugh.
And Abraham circumcised his son Yitzchak when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Yitzchak was born to him. And Sarah said, God has made joy for me. Whoever hears will rejoice over me. And
Kol hashomea Yitzchak. That's what she said in Hebrew. Kol hashomea Yitzchak. Okay, please.
And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? For I have borne a son to his old age. And the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day that Yitzhak was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, making merry. And Sarah said to Abraham, drive out this handmaid and her son, for the son of this handmaid shall not inherit with my son, with Yitzhak. But the matter greatly displeased Abraham concerning his son. And God said to Abraham, be not displeased concerning the lad and concerning your handmaid. Whatever Sarah tells you, hearken to her voice, for in Yitzhak will be called your seed. But also the son of the handmaid I will make into a nation, because he is your seed. And Abraham arose early in the morning, and he took bread and a leather pouch of water, and he gave them to Hagar. He placed them on her shoulder and the child, and he sent her away, and she went and wandered in the desert of Beersheba. And the water was depleted from the leather pouch, and she cast the child under one of the bushes. And she went and sat down from afar at about the distance of 2 bow-shots. For she said, let me not see the child's death. And she sat from afar, and she raised her voice and wept. And God heard the lad's voice, and an angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, what is troubling you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the lad's voice in the place where he is. Rise, pick up the lad, and grasp your hand upon him, for I shall make him into a great nation.
I would like to point out 2 things. First of all, that Abraham always listens to what Sarai tells him to do. This is very important for us. It's the second time that we there are 3 things. The second is that the women in the Bible are very active. They are not submissive. We have a tendency to look at things and say that the women in those patriarchal times were submissive. No. They really moved the plot. The problem is that in life you start a plot, but you never know how it's going to end. Like when she gave Hagar to Abraham. She had a plan that Ishmael will be their son, but Hagar had another plan. The human factor is a problem, always. Was and will be. And the third thing is that he always, when he does something bad, the Bible says that he woke up very early and left early. This is important for the continuation of our story. So here we are. One woman decides that the other woman is going to be cast out with a child to the desert. No water, heat. Just imagine Negev, the Negev somewhere, or Midbar Sinai, God knows where. And she, early in the morning, he gives them a bowl of water and some bread and casts them away. And Hagar becomes the archetypal person of a single mother that is cast away with her child. And we are going to listen now to some music written by Shalom Chanoch and sung by Arik Einstein, in which he says, I'll tell you what the poem says. It says, Hagar, get up when you hear the bell and go and be liberated. And she becomes the liberated woman with the child. He says, go and conquer the world. Let's listen to it, okay? Kumi Kumi Hagar.
שיצלצל בעיר המעמון בכל אוויר עוד וללכת השביתי את צרורת הגלת בין העיר נמיעי ירדתי אמצי את יד ירדך כמשמעת
Midbar is desert. So the songwriter really takes this woman's image and makes her the symbol of the liberated woman who is going to conquer the world. Instead of being outcast, you are going to conquer the world. Don't be afraid. I interpret it differently. On page 4, you'll find mother. Just imagine what a child feels when his mother throws him away under the shrub or bush and says, I don't want to see you dying. That's what she said. I told you, it's very violent, very cruel. Let me not see. The child is talking. Not believe. Me. You're cast under the shrub. The bread chewed with your saliva, the bottle you broke to pieces, and you were so far as if it were a bow shot, touching you, laga'at bach, knowing that I'm still alive, laga'at bach, לדעת שיש בי עוד ממש, ורחוקה היית אם תחווה קשת. And you were so far as if you were a bow shot. They are very near, but still she casts him. She says, I don't want to see you dying. And the child is there. Just imagine trying to touch the mother, but she doesn't want. What's going on between these two? The Bible is full of silence, of people not talking, of not telling us what they felt, what went on. So we could interpret it in many, many ways and see scenes in our eyes, in our imagination. What a terrible scene. It's heartbreaking. It's tearing the child and the mother apart. Once God saves them, the angel comes and saves them. How does the child feel? Now, if this is bad enough, let's go now to the Akedah, to the bindings of Yitzchak. Abraham also sent away one child, was his mother. Now, he didn't want to do it, but God said, listen to Sarah. And Abraham is a good husband, he listens to his wife. So he cast away the mother and the child. Now God says to Abraham, you take your only son, but he has two sons, one he already drove away. You take your second son, Yitzchak, and you're going to sacrifice him. And Abraham is going to wake up early in the morning, not telling anything to someone, and walk for 3 days with his son. We are going to read it and then read the poem, I will not offer. Ani lo akriv. Okay, we are on chapter. Yeah. Remember that one son is already gone. Only one son is left. Okay. Who would like to read?
You can still come back to me with the credit.
After these things, that God tested Abraham.
Oh.
And he said to him, Abraham,
Yeah, we're close to Friday. You're just having a bad look. I'm sorry.
and go away to the land of Moriah, and bring him up there
I should have received, so that's really
on
good.
one of the mountains, of which I will tell you. And Abraham arose early in the morning, and saddled his donkey, and took his 2 young men with him, and Isaac his son. And he split wood for burnt offering.
Could you raise your voice a little bit?
And he arose and went to the place of which God had told him. On the 3rd day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place from afar. And Abraham said to his young men, stay here with the donkey, and I and the lad will go yonder, and we will prostrate ourselves and return to you. And Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering, and he placed it upon his son Isaac. And he took into his hand the fire and the wood, and they both went together. And Isaac spoke to Abraham his father, and he said, my father. And he said, here I am, my son. And he said, here are the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham said, God will provide us ourselves the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And we both went together. And they came to the place of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham built the altar there, and arranged the wood. And he bound Isaac his son, and placed him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slaughter his son. And an angel of God called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, here I am. And he said, do not stretch forth your hand to the lad, nor do the slightest thing to him. For now I know that you are a God-fearing man, and you did not withhold your son, your only one, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes, and he saw, and lo, there was a ram. And after that it was caught in a tree by its horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son. Excuse me.
Okay. My husband said that I should call this lecture in the Torrentino, in the footsteps of the Bible, because a father sacrificing his son, he says, is only in the movies of Torrentino. And this is what's going on here. Remember, one child is gone. The only child that he bore when he was 100 years old, he is going to take and slaughter and offer to God. And he does it very early in the morning so his wife wouldn't know anything. And no one knows. Just imagine, the tent, everybody in the tent is still asleep. The tribe is asleep. It's early morning. He wakes up his son, his only son Yitzchak, and 2 boys and a donkey. And he puts a lot of wood on the donkey. And they start walking for 3 days. And the child keeps asking questions. Where are we going? What are we going to do? And he says, we're going to sacrifice. He says, so where is the thing that we're going to sacrifice? Where is the lamb? And he says, God is going to find us something. And he knows. For 3 days he knows he's going to sacrifice his son. And just imagine what's going on in the tent with the mother, with Sarai. She was 90 years old when she had this child. All of a sudden she wakes up and the child is not there. Oy vey, it's more than oy vey. You're getting tired, you're getting scared. Yeah. So we are there, and a miracle happens, and God finds a ram, and the ram is going to be offered as a sacrifice. In the meantime, the Israeli poets took this myth of the Akedah, of the binding of Yitzchak, of sacrifice, as a political thing. They looked at it as the archetypal pattern of sending children to war. And the first poem we are going to read is written by Raya Harnik, whose son Goni was a major and was killed during the fight on the Bufor. The Bufor, it's really Bo Fort, a beautiful fortress. It's in Lebanon, at the northern part of Israel. And in the First War of Lebanon in 1982, it was conquered by the Israeli troops, headed by Goni Harnik. And as a result, Raya Harnik became the woman's spokesperson, the spokeswoman for the movement to go out of Lebanon. She headed the 4 women, if you know, Arba Imahot, 4 mothers, who really moved the entire idea of going out of Lebanon. And I would like to read with you her poem, I Will Not Offer. I'm not like Abraham. I am not going to offer my son. Okay? So it's on page 6. No, it's on page, I will not offer, on page 5. Sorry, page 5. Okay? Can you see it?
It's on the back of
On the
page
back of
3.
Sarah. Can you see?
Back of page.
Yeah.
Where's the file?
I'll show you. It's on the back of Sarah. See? You had Sarah somewhere? Here it is, here it is, here it is. Mazal tov, okay. I will not offer. It's translated by Ruth Carton Blum, who is a professor of English literature in Israel. I will not offer my firstborn for sacrifice. Not I. At night, God and I make reckonings. Who can claim what? I know and am grateful, but not my son, and not my sacrifice. What she's saying is, I know that God gave me a lot of good things. I don't deny that, but I'm not going to sacrifice my son. That's too much. Izhar Smilansky, or some of his authors, one of the most acclaimed authors, Israeli writer, said in one of his stories, I hate Abraham. I hate Abraham because he wanted to sacrifice his son. Let him sacrifice himself and not the sons. Another poem that has to do with the binding of Yitzchak is on page 6, and it's called Ha'akedah, the binding of Yitzchak. On page 6, can you find it? It looks like that. Okay? Can you find it, please? Akedah. This poem was written by Eliza Shenhar. Eliza Shenhar is the president of one of the universities in Israel. She was our ambassador to Russia, and she describes the scene of the young soldiers being enlisted to the army as the Akedah, as the binding. It becomes the national symbol of the binding of the children in Israel who are sent to war every year. Would someone like to read it? Would you, Karen?
The loudspeaker screamed, "Take your only one, the one you love," and the altar is destroyed. Wood of the burnt offering is scattered. The youths roll balls of love on the grass of their youth. Their tongues are hot. The knife is shining in the wadi, in the light of the moon of mid-border. The white angel, the one who always cries, "Please don't lay a hand," is on leave.
What she does, she takes all the words of the Bible and she twists them to this idea of the children being drafted into the army. Instead of God, we have a loudspeaker. They come to the bakum, if you know what the bakum is. The bakum is where you draft the children, the place. And there is a huge loudspeaker. And the loudspeaker tells all the Israeli mothers, take your son, your only son, because each son is the only son, and really sacrifice them. Sacrifice them not on the altar of God, but for some idea of war. Yeah. And there is no altar, there is no God, there is no angel, nothing, just war and death. And they are so young, and they haven't even loved yet.
No.
And this is how some of our poets use the Bible as a stepping stone for some political ideas. So we just went over the first triangle of love, that of Abraham, Sarai, Hagar, Ishmael, and Yitzchak. Now we move to the grandparents. Yeah.
How old was Yitzhak when he was dying?
You caught me right now.
No, I don't think anybody really knows. There's the assumption that maybe he's like 5 or 6 or 7, but for all we know, he could be 25 or 30, right?
Right. Anyways,
Which changes the whole story. Because if he's 25, he's a co-conspirator as opposed to being a victim.
but I think it was just a child. That's what most commentators say, but I don't remember the exact age. Anyways, we go now to the second triangle of
You
the
think
brain.
somewhere in the back of his mind, Abraham knew that he wasn't going to have to sacrifice Isaac,
Maybe.
and because maybe he's just credulous. You know, my mother used to tell me and my twin brother, "You're credulous." She was right. My mother was right. Phil and I were very credulous. I'm not the same person I was when I was young. I'm a senior citizen now. I hardly believe anybody.
Also, if you work out the math, Abraham was a contemporary of Noah. They lived at the same time. Now, Abraham was a young boy. So it's not a big leap for him to know about the almost destruction of the entire world. And if someone could blink out an eye and destroy the whole world, I guess sacrificing a son is not a big deal.
Probably.
This is a statistic.
Yeah, but as I said, I'm not. I'm just reading with you the shot.
Stalin.
So let's go now to the second triangle of the grandchildren. It's Yaakov and Rachel and Leah. Now, Isaac marries Rebecca, and they are going to have twin children, Jacob and Esau. Now, Jacob, the Bible says to us, tells us that he is a naive person, and he sits home, where Esau goes out to the field and hunts, etc., etc. And Rivka like Jacob, and Yitzchak like Yaakov, Jacob. Now, it's Rivka really decides to trick Yitzchak because she wants her son, the younger one, Yaakov, though they are twins, he comes out second, to be blessed by his father. The blessing is usually given to the firstborn. So since Esau is very hairy and coarse, she's going to put the skin of a sheep on his hands because Yitzchak is blind. He's going to touch him and give the blessing to the wrong son. You remember that we have a lot of cheating in this story. So that's what happens. When Esau is going to hear that, he is going to decide to kill his brother, Yaakov. And Yaakov runs away to his mother's brother, to Lavan. There he's going to meet two girls. One, Rachel, who is very beautiful and he's going to fall in love with her. And the other, Leah, who is not beautiful. Her eyes are, they say, soft. God knows what it means, soft eyes. Anyways, she's not beautiful. And he wants to marry Rachel. And Lavan says to him, if you work for me for 7 years, you'll get Rachel. He says, okay. He's going to work very, very hard in the fields and with the flock. And he's going to bring a lot of new sheep to the flock because he's very good with that. And the night of the marriage, they make a big party and they bring his wife to his tent. And lo, in the morning, what did he get? Leah. And the Bible says in Hebrew, Vayehi baboker ve'imehi Leah. And lo, in the morning, it's Leah. And he says to Lavan, why did you cheat me? And what do we know? He cheated his brother. So the Bible says, if you measure for measure, if you did that, they are going to do the same to you. So Lavan says to him, because she is the younger one, the older one, and we don't give the younger one first. Who got the blessing? The younger one, measure for measure. So now Lavan says to him, if you are going to work another 7 years, I'll give you Rachel too. So he is going to work for 14 years in order to get Rachel. And in the meantime, Leah is going to bear his children. More and more and more and more and more children. And once after 14 years, he's going to marry Rachel. She's going to be barren. You remember like someone? She wants to have children, and she goes to Yaakov and she says, give me children. He says, I'm not God, I can't give you children. But you take so many children from the flock. So how come your wife don't want? And she's going to have one child, and later on when she's going to have a second child, she's going to die while giving childbirth. What we are going to hear now, we are going to hear two songs, and then we're going to read the story. One that says, Achake, I'll wait. Jacob is singing, I'll wait, and during the day, I'm going to work in the fields, and at night, I'm going to give water to the flock, etc., etc. And the second song that we're going to listen to is Rachel singing that she'll wait, and she understands the pain of Yaakov, and she has a place in her shoulder for him to lay his head to rest. Okay. I'll wait. Okay.
Okay. But I don't think so.
So, but still, that's always a good thing to do because you want it to stay preserved as well. So this is a fake one. This is a second. So you generally do the silver tissue. It's out right now. You can put it in, surround Mom says it's around her house. And yeah, and then it's golden. And then so when you put it in, this is inside your house. It's not going to say if you use it inside what makes it more sure it stays. And also just like wrap you don't want to leave the door. So then you just put that in. That's basically the.
Is this sort of handwritten?
Yeah, they have written this so soft.
And if it's not something
Take a
else.
shit off. The second one we're going to hear now, Rachel is singing to
Yes, it was. I'm assuming. Do you know the background? So it's the same kind of problem. The two people do that. You could have those in there. That's fine, but you can do that at the same time.
Yeah, actually, I'm sure you can find it on
Look around, you might have people.
I'm sure you have. I knew that now, but it wasn't observant. My son is the one that picked it.
So that's 32 and 63 cents. Thank you so much, sir. And you don't need a bag, do you?
Yeah, or if he has, it's also in prayer book.
Oh, is this the first time here? Oh, wow. Look at this prayer book.
I live in Southern California. My son goes to Cal.
Oh, cool. What year are you? Oh, nice. What are you studying?
History.
Oh, wow. And what are your plans in the next few months? Pressure.
Don't rush it.
Don't rush. Oh, I want to be a journalist.
Oh, wow. And did you focus on any specific area during this time?
Yeah, United States.
Okay, nice.
Near LA.
Okay, cool.
You have a beautiful store here.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
and she's singing Aphek for me. I'll wait for you. So now on page 7, you have to go and listen by an American writer
Thank you.
from Leah to her sister. You remember Leah is the one that is not beautiful, and the sister is very beautiful. And the beautiful ones are always burned, if you remember, like Sarai and Rebecca. My eyes are weak, but my body is strong. I'm not afraid to work. I work and will work, and someday will bear children. My eyes are weak, but my resolve is strong. I shall have my youth first to be married, first to bear children, yet I'll not be loved as you. My eyes are weak, but my love is strong. For I have loved you. You shall become a legend. I'll always be second, even in memory and prayer. How sad, huh? How sad to know that you'll never be the first one. But we shall see if the Bible agrees with this point. And now let's go to Genesis number 30, about the death of Rachel. And I would like, maybe you would like to read it?
Chapter 30.
You know, even 35, even 35 would be good. 35 is better because you, yeah.
And they journeyed from Bethel, and there was still some distance from Brat. Rachel gave birth, her labor was difficult. It came to pass when she had such difficulty giving birth, that the midwife said to her, "Do not be afraid, for this one too is a son for you." It came to pass when her soul departed, for she died, that she named him Benoni, but his father called him Benjamin. So Rachel died, and she was buried on the road
which is called Like Rachel. This poem was written by Dalia Rabikovich, who is the poet laureate of Israel, and she's also my cousin, and first cousin. And Dalia was very leftist in her political views, and she was burned too. And she had 3 husbands, and still no child. No, not at the same time. The first one was when she was 20. The second, I think she was 24. And the third one, whom she never married but lived, was for 17 years. I think she met when she was around 30. Something.
What are you looking for?
Anyways, she tried to conceive but could not. And the story goes, I don't know if it's true or not. Anyways, Hanan Porat from the Mitnachalim, from the settlers, swears that it's true. She wore the clothes of the garments of a ultra-religious woman, and she went to the tomb of Rachel, and she knelt there and prayed, and she conceived. And she had her only son, Ido, who is now 36 years old. David died 6 years ago, and from a heart attack. Anyways, that's the story. And when she wrote this poem, she was still barren. And this will explain a lot about this poem. She's asking here that she would like to die like Rachel. To die like Rachel, with the soul quivering like a bird, seeking an escape. Beyond the tent, Jacob and Joseph stood speaking. They spoke of her with awe. All her days tossed about within her, like a child wanting to be born. How hard it is. Jacob's love consumed her voraciously. Now while the soul expires, she has no desire for all. Suddenly the baby screamed and Jacob came to the tent. But Rachel feels nothing. Tenderness floods her face and her head. A great peace came over her. Her breath of life will never again stir a feather. They laid her down among the mountain stones and spoke no eulogy. To die like Rachel, this is what I want. You remember the destiny of a woman is to bear a child, and even if it means dying, it's more important to die and give birth than to live barren. And she takes this idea from the Bible. This is my destiny, and I don't care now for the love of Jacob. I don't care for anything. The only thing I care is that my life will give life to something else, to someone else. We are almost there. Almost, because I know I have to finish almost in about 5 minutes.
So if Benjamin weren't born, then maybe the Jews would have never gotten out of Egypt.
maybe, right? Because he put the goblet in his sack, right? Now we know that Jacob loved Rachel so much, but let's see what happens when he is going to die. Did he really love Rachel that much? Let's read Genesis 49. Could anybody read it for me? For us, sorry.
I'll read it.
Genesis 49.
And he commanded them and said to them, I will be brought into my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephraim the Hittite, in the cave that is the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre, and the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought from Ephraim the Hittite and Pharaoh province. And they buried Abraham and his wife Sarah, and they buried Isaac and his wife Rebekah, and there I buried Leah.
What strikes you?
Sarah.
No, Rachel. He wants to be buried with Leah.
She regretted that later.
Yeah. I mean, 14 years he enslaved for Rachel, and at the end, what do men do?
They mess up.
Yeah. That's what they do. 14 years. Men mess up, he said. That's what they do. What do we have here? We have two archetypal women. One who is the wife, and the other who is the beloved one. The one that is in your dreams. And Rachel is the one in the dreams. And Leah is the one who is more home. And that's why in Jewish tradition, Leah is Em Habanim Hallelujah, the mother of the sons. And Rachel is the one, when Shivat Zion, in days to come, she'll be happy. In the future, but not now. And let's listen to a song that an Israeli songwriter writes, and he understands the Bible better than the Bible, because he says, Ani ohev otach Leah. I love you, Leah. Okay? אתה יודע, זה שצריך Ehud Manor wrote the words, the lyrics, and Tzvika Peak, who also won the Eurovision, okay, number one, is going to sing it. לא הולך? אוי ואבוי.
Maybe I could have found it, but I wasn't that. But where we weren't able to find copies,
We could do more, but I mean, I was told that I had to finish to end the talk at the same time. Anyways, we spoke about the archetypal women really, and what the poets made out of them. And we saw how the density of the biblical story and the dramatization in it, the dramatic element, enables the writers to take it to so many different places. I also try to show you that Israeli songwriters are also captivated by this element in the Bible. So that's it, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Edna. Thank you, Edna. We have a little gift we'd like to give to you. This is from our sister lodge in Havana, Cuba.
Wow.
It was issued.
Are you going to send me that?
I'm going to give it to you. I'm not going to send it or not. It was issued by the museum in Havana for 100 years of the Jewish community in Havana. And it's a little present.
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's great.
A couple of announcements.